Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thanks for stopping by again. This is one of the videos I would do from time to time where I answer 2 or 3 questions that don't necessarily require an entire video, at least not at this point, nor probably in the future either. But there are issues that are of concern to some people, and I'd like to just run through them quickly. I have 3 of them today. List my list here. One of those is people ask me, "What is the business that you're in?" And the response is relatively simple. Um, First, you might say, a part-time journalist. What it means is that I do publish from time to time in various publications. Barron's, a financial publication in the U.S., is a place where I've been published on several occasions. This is when I feel I have something useful to say. Uh, it's not a job in the sense that it's going to provide me with enough income to be an employment, nor do I look at it that way. It's just a way that I have of sharing some of the thoughts that I have with others. And I've been an analyst for a long, long period of time. And I look at various and sundry things that have nothing to do with Panama. Sometimes they do. And I do write on them, that's all. I don't really bother sharing them with other people because this is not the purpose of this channel and so on. The purpose of this channel is to focus on you and on Panama. As far as a business is concerned in Panama, it's a small, very small entrepreneurial startup, you might call it, called Panama Wave, and it's directed specifically at what are called high net worth individuals and groups, people with money. Now, that's not because I think they're better people than the rest of us, nor is it because I am one of them, but because they are the people and the groups that have sufficient funds to do something substantial that can impact and help large groups of people. And in Panama right now, what we're trying to do is interest them in areas of the country that have been neglected or overlooked, where there's real value, and the folks there deserve their attention, their share of the attention too. Most of the construction here is focused in very few areas, for example, in real estate. And in some areas, it gets quite congested and sometimes grossly overpriced in some areas. So we need to balance this out somewhat. And there are genuinely places that are particularly interesting to us because they're very profitable. I mean, it's just a matter of people doing what everybody else is doing. It's one of the biggest problems we have with expatriate investors is they come in and do what everybody else is doing. So that just increases the tendency in that direction, and we have people, piling up in one area of the country. Panamanians tend to also focus on these areas. They're the ones who obviously started, at least the one west of Panama City on the coast. We call it the box. It's an area up and down the coast, which is really very well developed. Everyone's had a tendency to settle down in these areas and not take a good look at others, and we want to help them do that. And in the process, we don't always have good representation of the different price ranges that people are looking for. We have too many in one, too few in another, and so forth. Part of it's complicated. There's a lot of factors that a developer has to take into account when they're determining this, and we think we have ways and suggestions and recommendations to them where they might be able to expand the variety of price ranges that they offer, but profitably to themselves and to everybody else. I'll leave it at that. We're consultants. I don't develop anything. God forbid, don't put me in charge of developing a real estate development. I mean, not my expertise. But in terms of looking at an analytical viewpoint of the market here in Panama, that's something that right down my alley. And so we do that, and we do the best we can. And it's an uphill struggle because people, again, they tend to always do what everyone else is doing until something goes wrong or somebody's bold. So we work with that. And hopefully that we can have a good positive impact for people in Panama and people coming to Panama as we continue to work along. It's a long, slow road to go, but it's an important one, I think. Now, secondly, a subject that comes up occasionally is regarding statistics. And this has to do with the report from Panama I recently sent out. Now, if you have come to this channel or signed up for the retirement wave site, for the newsletter, whatever, very recently, the last week or so, and you have not received a copy of the report from Panama that was sent out a little over a week ago, then, and you want one, then just leave a comment below this video with your email address, because no comment shows up on this website until I've approved it. So when it comes in and it says, Bob, I want a copy of the report, here's my email address, I send it immediately when I see it, and then I delete it immediately. So it never ever shows up in public. This is to protect your privacy. I want mine protected when I'm on the net, and yours needs to be protected too. But this is the fastest and easiest way for people to get a copy who haven't gotten one. So some of what I'm saying here probably would be more easily understood by people who'd already read the report. Now, the GDP, or gross domestic product of the country, this is how the economy is expressed in dollar form. Think of it as like the national income, the course of a year that a country earns. Last year was 4.9%. It had been predicted in the year prior, 2015, that it would be 6%. So this was a disappointment. But on the other hand, the numbers had gone down everywhere around us, so we still ended up near the top of the field, so to speak, in the Americas. I think we came in number 2 last year in terms of growth rate. But that 4.9 was a disappointment. And people said, Bob, the canal was expanded and it opened in the middle of last year. Why didn't it have a big impact on the economic growth? All right, now I have 2 responses to that. One, very quickly, is I congratulate the National Institute for Statistics and the Census for their professionalism and for the hard work they do. And they do very good work here in trying to put these statistics together as accurately as possible. I've worked in so many countries where they just don't have the resources. Here, they're gaining the resources. They're doing a better job every year. But the worst, to work in countries where the politicians obviously are manipulating the figures. Now, this has been claimed, and I think with justice, places like China in the past, certainly, Argentina in the past, Venezuela, and a number of other places. And that's extraordinarily frustrating because you can't trust the stats. You're not sure whether or not this is really the statistic or whether some politician has made it the statistic. Now, this 4.9% is something I salute, because I'll tell you this, any politician in power would much prefer that the number be 5%, not 4.9. And it's so easy to bump a number up 0.1% if you're dishonest. In many nations, that would occur. Not many, I shouldn't say that. Used to be many, fewer now, but still it would occur. The fact that it didn't occur here, it just reconfirms what I already know from more than a decade of experience of following the Institute and the work that it does on statistics, to convince me that this is free from that sort of political involvement, and that's important. So in this bizarre sense, I was pleased that it was only 4.9%. The second thing to understand is that when something big like the expansion of the canal comes on board, the money arrives, but it takes its time to work its way through the economy and to really begin to have an impact in other statistics. Most statistics you read, of course, are backward-looking. They're on what has happened, and they don't always show what's currently underway. Now, for the first 3 months of this year, and it came after I sent out the report from Panama, but the first quarter of this year, especially the 3rd month, which was just news a few days ago, show a dramatic increase in economic activity. And in fact, for this first quarter, about 6.2% on an annualized basis. Well, wow, from 4.9 to 6.2? Well, the truth is, of course, is we have to wait for the other 9 months to see what actually occurs. But I don't know what that's going to be. Most people have been assuming in the mid-5s, 5.5, 5.6, 5.4, something like that. But we're starting out at a very, very good growth rate here. And some of that is definitely due to the impact of the expansion, which, by the way, the canal is well underused and things are working extremely well there. We're very, very pleased with the results of that expansion, and it's just now part of everyday life. So this money and many other things that are underway here, I could go on for half an hour talking about the big projects underway. These all begin to show up in economic growth statistics as the money is actually spent and released. It takes time, but it happens. So we're very pleased and nothing to be disappointed about in that regard. Another question that comes up is that I have spoken from time to time, and it said the Europeans are a growing number of people who are arriving here. And I've had questions as to where are these people from? What are you talking about? I did some statistics here, get them up where I can see them, and that I was just taking recently. And I'll put it this way, we're just talking in this case about people who are arrivals at Tocumen Airport, international arrivals. They are the first clue you get of changing interest from other nations. And in going through it all, we discover that the three countries that are definitely the most numerous in arriving here are the Spanish, who are number first, definitely, the French, and the Italians. They all are showing up in the top group that have substantial numbers of people coming here. So it's Spain, France, Italy. However, if you look at the growth rate over the last few years, it comes out a little bit different. France is rapidly growing, very, very rapidly. Spain's growing, and Italy's growing. All three of them at very high levels. But France just happens to be way out in front in this particular case. People will go back and say, well, what about Germans or the Dutch and other groups like that, the British and so on? And my response is that their total number is not yet at a point that we include them in the top groups in terms of numbers. But their growth rate is every bit as dramatic, and for the Germans, very dramatic over the last few years. So they're becoming more and more relevant, so to speak, to the total picture. But they're definitely on their way up. In fact, it's interesting to see how the mix is changing over the last few years. But those are the Europeans who are coming in to give you an idea of that. And we watch them carefully here because they're welcome. And they're new people with new ideas and looking for different things. And many of them with families as opposed to just retired people. Remember, retired people are a small minority of the total of expatriates to come in. A lot of people here are in business, a whole variety of other factors. A lot of people with second homes and investment homes and vacation homes and so forth and what have you. So you can't really generalize about them easily. You have to really look into them in detail. But that gives you an idea of some of our friends and neighbors from Europe who are now arriving. So that's it. I hope that's helpful to some people and answers some of the questions that come in. And I look forward to seeing you or talking to you again in the near future.